You run down on your feature event, 25 laps. On the pole is car number 98, Bud Finale of Jamestown, New York, a 1957 Chevy. Off the pole, car number 220, Chuck Piazza of Jamestown, New York, a 1956 Chevy.
I think when I was probably 18, I tried my hand at drag racing a little bit, and then had a lot of my friends that were doing the circle track, and they was getting a little bit of money every week when they went racing, and I thought, well, that's better than a trophy. And but I guess I look back, the guys from Jamestown, of course, back then were Kenny Johnson and Samuel Mancuso and Paul Wilson and John Seeley and, of course, Kyle Brown back then, and then was friends with Bobby Schnars and Jug Pierce, and I guess that all those guys influenced me one way or the other. I bought my first car, of course, from Marv Thorpe.
Ah.
First year I drove a little bit, and Jug Pierce drove for me and tried to help me, and Dean Layfield drove the car one night and gave me a lot of help, and so I had a lot of help from, not only my friends, but the guys I was racing. Started in 58 and ran, took turns with Jug driving the car when we could get it repaired and get it ready to race, and then Chevrolet maybe in 59. If memory serves me correct, I believe that's what happened, and we won a race or two and started having a little success,
What about Squirt Johns?
Well, Squirt was just he was back in those days. He was just awesome. He had those big Chrysler products, and he would get those things to run around the inside. He didn't have to race anybody because he was always down on the inside. It seemed like, he just run around the inside, but he was the only one that could get down there and get traction and make it work, and everybody else was up on the outside. And Squirt was certainly one of my idols back then. He was kind of neat, but we was running at Stateline Speedway one night, and there was, I guess, a pretty good pile-up. Unfortunately, I didn't get involved in it, nor did Tom Dill. And Tom would always get out of the car, we had a chance, and he would exchange pleasantries with the fans, and he was right beside my car, and I remember him asking some of the fans, how he was doing, and I guess he got a positive answer because he wasn't involved in the wreck anyhow. But at any rate, Tom walked over to the car, and he said, I said, who's involved in the wreck? And he said, I don't know. He said, but who's W1? And well, what it was Bobby in there, and he was turned upside down, and I'm looked at, he said, who's W1? And it took me a second to realize, well, that was Bobby. So, that was a lot of them. Of course, I think one of them was, I think maybe in 59, maybe, or 60. I can't remember now, but it's I think it was the first firecracker race I ever won up at Stateline, and I had bought a brand new engine, and but boy, it really strapped me to buy it, and I wanted to put that engine in, and I finally decided to pay all the other expenses. I need to sell that engine. So somehow Jug and I did a swap or a trade or something. I got a little money extra, I guess. I got his old engine, and he took my new one, and I ended up winning the race with the engine I got from Jug. Had a Joey Chitwood show up at the Speedway, and you know how they rolled the cars over,
right?
And that was pretty exciting. Well, I don't recall how it all happened, but probably Bobby and Jug, and I think I was there, and maybe some other guys was there. But they set up ramps to to get the car and see how far you could go on two wheels, and I think Jug probably had maybe his dad's car. It wasn't his car, but he got it up on two wheels, but then it went a little further than that. And I, as I recall, he rolled it over. But that was Jug, real aggressive, just a hard charger. And I can remember some of those races. We'd be starting at the back of the pack, and or you're near the back of the pack, and they did start the points leaders or the faster cars at the back. You always did a reverse starting order back then, anyhow. And I can remember that flag dropping, and you could just hear this engine just screaming. And here comes Tom, and there's no place to go, and he just gets on the back of somebody, and he's pushing the whole line up through there. But he was an aggressive driver too. Deal, yeah, he probably is the one you least wanted to be around because he didn't take any prisoners.
Why 220?
That number come up. I was running the Chevrolets back at that time, and Chevrolet had an engine out that was 220 horsepower. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to work with Berglund, and so I always got to give Ed Schultz a lot of credit for giving me some good equipment and getting a good start in that area. And I think I drove for him a couple of years, and we did have a couple of really good years with Berglund Chevrolet. And okay, well, we were running a state line, and there was a wreck, I think, going down into probably right into 3, and I didn't get caught up in the wreck, but I got blocked, so I had to stop, and I was down sort of on the inside of the track, and I looked up in the mirror, and the yellow was out, everything, and the track was pretty well blocked, and here comes Phil Jackson, and boy, he's not slowing down, he's not cracking it, but Phil worked his way around the outside of the blockage around the track, but he never lifts. I mean, he's in it all the way, and I watched him go through 3 and 4 and clear all the congestion and go up the front straightaway, and he still hasn't lifted. And I'm looking at him in the mirror, and here he comes again. He comes off a 2 wide open. I'm sitting down at the end of the straightaway on the inside going into 3. Here comes Phil, and to me it looks like he's never lifted. Well, he stopped, but you know where he stopped? After he went in the back of my car.
Oh, gosh.
Your race is on. In the lead yet is Bud Finale in car number 98, leading the pace. 2 laps completed, 23 laps to go with Keith Warner and 20 running second. A spin out by Marv Clark in car number 1 on that 4th turn. And Marv is stalled. I hope they all see that one and go right there into the fence of Phil Jackson, car number 12. Phil Jackson, car number 12, into the fence. Mark Clark, car number 1 on the 4th turn. The inside.
The biggest thing, of course, when I started going to the races was watch Dean slide a car all the way around Stateline Speedway, which was unbelievable the way that he used to do it. And I never won as many races. Well, I didn't win a lot of races up there, but I was pretty steady, especially in the later years. But I think probably the highlight was the last year I run up there. I think I won one of the track championships, and I don't recall now whether it was Stateline or Erie. And then I was second at the other track, and then we won the circuit. So that was sort of I guess my crowning achievement, if you'd like to call it that. But I think that was one of the highlights. We did have a good time down there. It was just a lot of camaraderie, and of course we raced, and when we got on the racetrack, we probably beat and banged didn't matter who it was, but sure a good bunch of guys, and we helped each other a lot, and it was a memorable time, no question.
What was your role, Don, when you started to, you laid out the track and everybody started to do things? I know Leonard Briggs did the electrical aspects of it. What'd they have you do?
Well, just any old job. Run to Jamestown, get parts, or just anything.
Yeah.
I always kidded when people said we were making lots of money. I always told them, "Oh, I get pretty good money for cleaning the restrooms every week." We had a lot of fun over the years, really, but we didn't ever.
We made a lot of money too.
We went in it with the idea of not making any money, and it got to the point where we needed to make some money, and the guys needed another track to build, and we just got into it, and we actually got into it without a lot of money because we had a lot of friends around this town, the farmers and stuff. They helped us out, and didn't cost us nothing but a free pass every year to the Speedway and stuff like that, you know, and that's how we got started. We didn't have no money, us
The
guys.
very first race you did in 1956, when you had rain the first couple weeks, so it didn't run, and then finally you ran the races, but
It rained pretty hard the Saturday we were going to open.
right.
And we'd been around there a lot, but we didn't realize, we knew the ground wasn't just right for parking, but we never figured it was going to be as bad as it was. It sogged all the water up. We finally got ditches down through that parking lot to drain the thing. We did have an awful time, and we had a lot of, like I say, we had a lot of friends. Farmers from around came in with their tractors that night late and pulled people out. Nowadays, if you had that happen to you, you'd have a lot of lawsuits on you, and we got away with it that way. And people loved it up there. I loved the racetrack. And Emery Mann won the first feature that we ever held up there. But Emery got that $300 that first night. He never got the money in his pocket. But he talked to a friend of his, real close to him, was Leonard Briggs. And he said, "You guys didn't do us a good night on your crowd, did you?" And Leonard said, "No, we did pretty rotten, really. How he's going to pay that, I don't know, but Emery pulled us out of it anyway." He told Leonard, he found out what he was going to get for winning. He said, "You keep it, so you're fit to..." So I was telling about it at a meeting we was having down there one night. And Emery said, I told about, "Well, some of you guys like this," because I remember one guy let us use his money for a while because of $300. And Emery got up and he says, "I'm sorry, but," he says, "I never did collect that, did I?"
He's with the truth. Does he tell any lies?
Watch him. He'll say he's just kidding, but well, let's get away from that before we start a fight.
Don, he was jack of all trades up there. I mean, he cut grass and he did the toilets and always helped me when I need. He always knew what. That's one thing. He always knew what I needed. If I needed the York rake on the tractor, he knew. If I needed a load of water up there by the track, he knew. One day Don was out. He was going to do some brush hogging in the parking lot, so we'd like to keep the grass cut.
Oh.
So he's coming charging up through there cutting grass, and all of a sudden he looks down and there's all this damn money laying everywhere. It's all cut up. And he says, "Oh God," he thought he just thought he just came from heaven. And then he reached for his billfold. And his billfold, he'd cut the damn his own billfold out. The money would go all laying all everywhere.
I'm not lying. I think it was $180.
Oh my gosh. Remember that?
It was a pile of money. Christ, I'm lucky to have a $1.80 in my pocket now. Tom Dill. I don't know any stories about him. I know one I always remembered. Him and another driver had a fiscal out on the track and weren't getting along too good. Of course, brakes are pretty important on race cars, but Tom went in the pit, and the guy he was having trouble with on the racetrack, he ran into the car in the pit, rammed it, and he always told us guys his brakes went out. Ours, of course, everyone knows Bob. He would much rather go out and have a beer in the woods instead of being with the fans after he'd win a big race. He was sort of bashful, but he was a hell of a nice guy. Squirt Johns, he was quite a drawing card. Pretty nice guy, really. I don't know, they got Squirt out of him. You probably know him, don't you? But
We met Squirt, yeah.
big guy.
Tell us about Dean Layfield.
What about him?
Yeah.
Well, he was ahead of everyone driving a little bit because they'd raced downstate, and Squirt and them, they were away from home, and there's a lot of big names from there when it raced. They were ahead of us up there as far as building cars and everything. And the people stand right up in their seats when he would drive into the pit road. If he was a little bit late getting there, they cheer like hell for that guy.
You run down on your feature event, 25 laps. On the pole is car number 98, Bud Finale of Jamestown, New York, a 1957 Chevy. Kyle Russell in car number 4 on the move. Here it is, the checker flag and the win. Bobby Stars. And a battle for second. And it is Jim Hakes in 37. Third, Kyle Russell in car number 4. And fourth, Phil Mayfield in 21. Here he is, the terrific job of driving his second feature event of the season. What do you say? A big hand for Bobby Stars. Nice going, Bobby.
I don't think we ever thought we'd stay in business too long, but well, we just loved racing,
Right.
and we wanted to get into it, get our feet wet, I guess, and we had a lot of fun over the years, really.
And we had an old 39 Ford that I used to have when I was 16 years old. I had a speed shop in Asheville.
Did you really?
Yeah, and I graduated when I was 16, so I had some time before college. I went to college the next year. But anyway, we used to build engines in Jim Polaro.
Right.
We used to build engines for Jim, and we were just kids. But I've done it all my life.
You would go to the Jamestown Speedway,
Yeah.
and were there certain drivers that you followed? Were there?
Oh, back then, Bob Hallett used to race in the old Jalopy. Dan Crandall's father used to race there. Emery Mann had his old 8-ball, which was a straight 8 Buick, and he'd shift it going down the straightaway on a quarter-mile track, and he won a lot. And then we had Freddie Knapp driving our cars. We raced up there at Skyline, I think it was called.
Right.
We raced Skyline for a while, but not very often. I think we just started racing when that thing was about done. And then, of course, the next progression was to go to Stateline.
Leonard Briggs mean to Ed Schultz?
Leonard was a great guy, nice, soft-spoken individual. He wasn't a hot dog. He wasn't, he didn't come on too strong. He wasn't a Jerry Franks or one of those guys, He was just a nice guy. The whole Briggs family, I knew the whole Briggs family.
Jerry sort of the enforcer? Was he the?
Sort of that way, yeah. He was more caustic than the rest of the guys. and he got things done his way and the way he wanted them done, you know,
Yeah.
which is fine. He was the boss.
Racing up there in the early years of Stateline, your guy was Freddie Knapp?
Yep, Freddie Knapp. Then we had a fellow that was racing there, and he finally came to work for me, and that was Chuck Piazza.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Chuck said, boy, I'd sure like to drive a car for you and all this stuff. And Chuck was really a gung-ho individual, and he wanted to get going. So I ordered a new coupe with a 396 in it, 4-bolt mains, and we pulled the engine out of that thing and went all through it. And Ross Culvert, who was a mechanic that worked for us, very good mechanic, and Jim Farding.
Mm-hmm, sure.
Okay, those are the guys that built the car. Had another friend that did a lot of engine work for me and carburation work, and that was Bud Wilcox, who is now dead. Mm-hmm. And so the combination of these guys, they put together pretty good race cars. And like the old story says about racing, a lot of millionaires were made by racing, but they were billionaires when they started. And we used to race, and if we won a feature, we were so happy because we had enough money to buy new tires for next week.
Yeah, yeah.
If you blew an engine, you were really in trouble.
So the economics were such that would you then would you buy the car then and make it available to whether it was Freddie or Chuck?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They worked on it. I bought the car. This is their car. We advertised on it. And I don't know how much the advertising did, but a lot of people think it does good. And we did get a lot of play from the cars that we drove. Yeah. And then eventually, let's see, Chuck Piazza went away. And Ed Jr. wanted to start racing. He was old enough then. And we put him in what they used to call a hooligan class. Mm-hmm. We had a 57 Chevrolet. And he did very well with it. He raced it, I think, 2 years. I don't think he won points, but I know he came in second a couple times.
Right.
And then he wanted to go for racing big time, as he called it. And we put him into a Camaro at that point. And that Camaro was built by Jim Fardink and Whitey.
Something
John Seeley, too. Yeah, John Seeley, he drove cars that was made by Lyle Brown.
Yep.
Yeah, and Bud Finelli. And then there was Floyd Finelli after that. I used to call him the Grand Finale. Sammy Lamancuso, he was always sideways. He was always sideways. That rear end of the car was always hanging out. Nobody could get around him. It was about 3 cars wide. I remember that. There's Chuck Piazza. He looks like he's half asleep there. Of course, Emery was hotter than a pistol when that thing first started. Mm-hmm. He had that 57 fuel-injected Chevrolet, and that's the same car I drove. I drove a fuel-injected 57 coupe. And boy, were they nice running cars. He took a stock one and made it run. I mean, it was completely stock. Yeah. Just right off the truck and gutted it, put roll bars in it, and away he went. More or less the financial backer of the thing, and gave him the tools to work with. Right. And we were the advertiser, and they tried to do the best they could, you know. I seemed to only get involved in the picture when they needed another rear end, or the engine blew, or transmission wasn't right. We had to change gears. It's whatever, you know. So no, as far as that goes, there was complete harmony in most of that. Bobby was a little volatile when he drove for me, but he wanted to do it all his way, and I guess he had some problems with the mechanics and stuff. And one time he was going to quit in the middle of the season, and then he decided he wouldn't quit and got back in the car and drove it and stuff.
Bobby Schnars.
Yeah, Bobby.
Yeah.
That's after he left Hageland's when he driving the, what were those things? I can't remember.
Javelin.
Javelins, there you go.
heard that
There are
from several
there. Oh, sure. There's drivers that are more aggressive than the others. I don't think I had a real aggressive driver. Only maybe in Bobby Snars. He was more aggressive than Freddie Knapp by a long shot, and Chuck Piazza was just a steady Eddie type individual. But he did get in problems here and there, with other drivers.
Mm-hmm.
But in Ed Jr., he never really got into any big problems with anybody that I recall.
Or they told you about.
Yeah, that I knew about. I know that Skip Furlow, having the same car as he had, he put a sign on the back of his car. He says, what the heck did it say? It said, lead, follow, or get the heck out of the way. Something like that, Oh, no, I interacted with most of the drivers. The only guy that was his own man was Bobby.
Yeah.
Bobby did it his way. And matter of fact, he used to take the car home and work on it himself.
Oh.
And he wouldn't bother our mechanics, with his anything. He just took, I think matter of fact, he kept the car at his place most of the time, down at bus time.
So you had to make an appointment to see your own car?
No, well, no, I go to the racetrack and see it go. That's all I was interested in. I hope he shows up, and he always did, But it was a fun thing for the whole family.
Yeah.
We have people say, we saw your car running, blah blah blah, and yeah, I think it did help somewhat, but to the extent I have no idea. Just like any advertising.
Right.
But primarily it was advertising for us, and also my love of racing that I was brought up with,
Sure.
and wanting to see our car succeed.
Did you ever drive?
Never drove a car. No, I took one lap once.
Did you?
Or two maybe,
Yeah.
before I went through a fence at the end of a straightaway. And that was at that Jamestown Speedway behind Mike's restaurant. It was, yeah.
Did you want to do it for kicks or?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to see if I could. I knew the car drove well and everything because Freddie Knapp was driving it. I took it around there, and I didn't quite make the corner. I was going fast, but I didn't make the corner.
No desire thereafter?
No, I decided I'd just be a mechanic.
1967, an early lap skirmish with Clyde Porter and the resulting hole in this side of his 1967 Chevelle didn't stop Fred Knapp from winning his 5th new car main event. Do you remember that at all? Up in this corner, look at that.
I remember that. I remember he had a big hole in the side of his car and he still won.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Number 6.
You saw some number 6s along the way
Yeah.
there over the years.
Yeah, I still got the racing helmet in the garage, number 6.
No, you're really.
Do you really? We need to get a picture of that, Greg.
We need to make sure we get this documented here.
Tell us about the helmet. It looks like a football helmet. Was this a normal?
I think it's for racing.
Just racing?
I think so.
Yeah. Most racing drivers are remembered for their victories and near misses, but with Ed Kisco of Kane, Pennsylvania, it's a different case. Kisco is best remembered as the principal participant in the most spectacular smash-up in Stateline's history. It happened along toward the end of 1957 during a 50-lap race. Kisco's hurtling cars struck a parked racer, flipped side for side, and was socked on the top by Emery Mann, gunning along in second place. Thousands gasped as Kisco's machine bounced pell-mell down the front straightaway, parts flying in all directions. Thousands were stunned when Kisco got out of the car and walked apparently completely unhurt. Eddie still recalls that pileup and still has a few souvenirs of it too. A quick twist of his head results in a slight pain in his neck and in his back. Acts up a trifle on occasion. But Eddie, now a part-time pilot of Frank Ruhlman's number 4, wants to correct a few impressions. They all said I was knocked out, and that just isn't true.
I wasn't.
I remember everything. Johnny McGinley was the first man over to the car when it stopped bouncing, and he looked in and asked me if I was okay. I said, "Yes, John, have them turn the car back over, but do it easy."
Yeah.
Tell him, what do you remember of that accident?
Well, just the way it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, they flipped. I said, flip it over, and they flipped it over, and the roof was right on top of the seat, and they ripped it up, opened up like that, and I got out and I waved. I said, "I'm all right."
Did you have a roll cage in that car?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it brought the cage down too?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was just driving like this, and it was almost to the end, and I was looking to see what flag, they were going to put out. And I was looking like this, and then that's when I slammed into the car and flipped over. Because it was about 2 or 3 laps to go, and I thought, geez, is that one lap to go or 2 laps to go, or what it was? And I just kept looking and looking.
Now that's why
I hit.
I'm sorry, this car was stalled on the track?
Yeah, those days, if a car stopped, they just left it sit right there instead of taking it off the track. Nowadays they don't. Something happens like that, they get them off the track, get them off.
Wow.
Those they just let them sit there.
Just left them there.
That's why that was sitting there, and I wasn't paying any attention, looking to see what. It was 2 laps to go, what it was, bang.
No yellow flags, no.
I cannot believe that. Did they change the rule about that after your wreck?
Oh,
Did they start towing
no.
the cars off the track after that day?
Later on.
Never did do that.
No.
Racing car was in Kane.
Yeah. Hook them up and tow them up.
Yeah, and you were mentioning the fact of the every time they would introduce Squirt Johns, what would they say about Squirt Johns?
Faraway, Squirt Johnson, Faraway Brockway.
Hal Russell died in November of '63. First Russell race. Oh, there it is. Eddie won the Russell Memorial on May 30th, 1964.
You drove in a lot of interesting cars.
Yeah.
When you ended racing at Stateline, you never went back.
No.
Yeah.
Those are the great old days. And I finished first in points at Erie's Speedway, and second in points in Stateline Speedway. And those, that time.
We run down on your feature event, 25 laps. On the pole is car number 98, Bud Finale of Jamestown, New York, a 1957 Chevy. Next on the pole, car number 8, Emery Mann of Warren, PA, a 1957 Chevy.
And, we wanted to run the race really bad, but didn't have money enough to buy a car. We ended up going up to Twin Auto, who used to sponsor race cars. In fact, I bought some of my race cars wrecked from him and fixed them, but he gave us a 6-cylinder 1952 Ford
and I think I paid him $100 and promised to pay him the rest someday. And we took the thing home and fixed it, and we got it ready just in time. We didn't get any letters on it, so we put letters on with masking tape. We drove it to the racetrack at Clarion, and we took the hubcaps off and rolled the windows down and took the belt off our pants and put it around the doors, and we ran it, I think, fifth, maybe somewhere in there. Paid $27. I remember that. And we put the hubcaps back on and the headlights back in it and drove it back home. And I was in the car business working for the Chevrolet dealer at the time, and we were wholesaling cars into South Carolina. And this guy come along about a week later, and we sold him this car. We sold him this car so I could finish paying Harold up at Twin Auto for it. And he picked it up on a truck and took it down there, and he come back about a month later, and he said, "What in the world ever happened to that Ford?" He said, "That was the loosest car that I ever owned in my life. It rattled worse than any car you ever owned." Everybody's got better stories than I have. I mean, I did it for the sheer pleasure or thrill of it. It didn't seem like a big deal. In fact, you know, you didn't talk a lot about it sometimes because people thought you were playing crazy to go out there and run around.
Oh, I hear you.
And it wasn't an honorable thing most of the time.
Oh, I hear you. That's
I can remember, you know, on these cold nights, you always waited for the first guy to blow a tire so you could set the tire on fire to keep it from freezing to death, you know. If they'd start in March, you know, when it was really cold nights. And there's just so many things. The more you think about it, the more you remember. But try to eliminate half your brake on your right front wheel, and we even tried things like threaded jacks on the springs, you know, so you could change your weight distribution. We'd jack it we'd put long handles on them so we could change it during the race, you know. Well, as you got into it, weight and weight distribution and got to be an accepted thing, you know, a learned thing, I guess. And every time you go to a racetrack, you'd try to look at everybody else's car to see if you could find something that might work for you, you know.
Sure. That makes sense.
I remember those on that jacket the first time we tried that way. We built a cover over it, so and we didn't put the handle on until race car time, so we thought we had a really high-tech deal there. I raced till 82, and I wanted, it was, well, the last 2 years I'd race Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Monday I had a standing appointment with a chiropractor to put me back together, and after a couple of years of that, I even figured out that I shouldn't be doing this anymore.
Gotcha.
But I sold my car to, and I don't even remember his name, to a guy in Conneaut, Ohio, and he came to pick the car up with a tilt bed, and when he came to get the car, he loaded the tilt bed on, and loaded on the tilt bed and started off. And I said, "Wait a minute, no." I said, "You bought the car. You bought all of this." And I had 4 or 5 Hemi engines there that I'd ran with that Plymouth, and I had 4 or 5 440 6-packs with the stage 3 heads and the big valves and aluminum water pumps and aluminum flywheel housings and all the stuff that we did trying to get the weight off from that big old heavy engine, you know.
Sure.
And I had, I don't know, 3 or 4 sets of stage 3 heads, and I made him take it all. I got $3,000 for the whole deal. And you know what a Hemi engine is worth today?
Oh, a lot of money.
You run down on your feature event, 25 laps. On the pole is car number 98, Bud Finale of Jamestown, New York, a 1957 Chevy. Next on the pole, car number 8, Emery Mann of Warren, PA, a 1957 Chevy.
Of January in the year 2005. This is an interview with Emery Mann in Warren, Pennsylvania. Why did you race?
Well, first, there wasn't a lot of things to do during that period of time, and I really enjoyed the raw competition. It was a thrill. Even a heat race, a short heat race, it just got your adrenaline running, and I guess I enjoyed that part of it.
What tracks first did you run at locally? And
locally there was the first track we ran on a regular basis was called Dickie Bend. This was in Warren. It was named after Dick Morrison and Ben White, and hence the name Dickie Bend. And they started racing there in 1948. That was on a weekly basis, and we raced there initially we won the first race they ever ran there, so I guess that hooked us probably.
There you go, in 1948 then. Okay.
Yeah, and I heard about this race at Williams Grove, and so I called my guys back in Warren. I said, bring the car down. We'll go down there and race. I had about half the 28th Division out there for a cheering section that night.
That's great.
And it was a USAC race, which they were kind of toying with labels at that time. I think that quite a lot of the drivers, it was kind of like reading Who's Who. As I remember, Sam Hanks and Dick Grassman, and I can't remember all, but the real name drivers had just come back from running Le Mans.
Okay.
And they raced there, and we set a track record that night.
It's funny. We made the shift. I don't know if you remember, but in the early NASCAR days, they had a vice president called John Markham.
No, that name doesn't ring a bell.
And him and Bill France got to arguing, and they split up, and Markham went out and he started MARC, Midwest Association of Race Cars, a takeoff on his name, which ended up being ARCA Racing.
Okay.
But we elected to run with Markham. Markham was he's a guy that's bigger than life. He was, I remember the first race we ran was in Birmingham, Alabama, and we flat-towed them in those days, you know.
Gotcha.
And so it took us 24 hours to drive there. We got there about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we slept in the car until that was at a fairgrounds. They opened it up, and we went in, and it was, as I remember, I think it was a 250-mile race on a half-mile track.
Okay.
And of course, yeah, that was our first experience with pit stops. You know, we never run a race long before you had to go in and get gasoline and tires and stuff. And I remember we went in and I was running third, I think, and we went in and we got gasoline and stuff at about 220 miles, and we figured that we could finish the race, you know. And we went and got back on, and we were seventh when we got back on. And at 225 or 30 miles or somewhere, they shut the race off. And the reason they shut it off, they called it for darkness at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh.
So we went in to get paid, and they paid you if you got first, you got paid first. And a guy named Harold Smith won the race. And John is sitting there, and he had that southern talk, and he said, "Now let's see, son. You won so much money. How much are you going to pay us on the tires?" And when I come in seventh, I was the first guy to get all the money coming that I had coming. He owned half or all of the race cars. He owned the tires. He owned the engines. He owned everything.
Unreal.
And so, but the way he was doling the money out, he would
they were so far from home, he'd give them money enough to get back home.
Unreal.
And he kept the rest of it to pay against these engines and stuff.
Interesting story.
The first major competitor was a guy named Bobby Allen.
Okay.
Where
was he out of?
He was from Wattsburg, New York.
Okay.
And he had to run a flathead Ford. And he had one of them cheater cars. He planed the heads on the cars.
Gotcha.
That's amazing, but that's really the truth. And then Bobby Rumbaugh was the next major competitor.
Okay. Was he a Pennsylvanian?
He was from Corey, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
So those are some of your early competitors.
Yeah, and Dean Layfield was always a great competitor. Squirt Johns, Bobby Schnars. Those were really great competitors.
You run down on your feature event, 25 laps. On the pole is car number 98, Bud Finale of Jamestown, New York, a 1957 Chevy. And they're really barreling into the first turn. Coming out best is Bud Finale in car number 98. Second, Keith Warner in 20, and third, Bud Gardner in 102. They're really moving out in the feature event of the evening. However, all cars must make that first lap in order for the race to be on. They're still all going, so your race is on. In the lead yet is Bud Finale in car number 98, leading the pace. 2 laps completed, 23 laps to go.
Bud, right?
Bud was the oldest, yeah.
And so did you do the building, the mechanicals and stuff?
Later on I did.
Yeah, and he drove?
And Bud drove, yeah. And then,
that because he was the oldest, or was he?
Because he was the oldest, yeah.
Was he the meanest?
Yeah, he was kind of goofy. Like the rest, this guy like the rest of us. He was quite a quick-tempered, Bud was.
Was he?
Yeah, he was.
Well, that's one thing nice. We've not heard that about you.
Yeah,
At
no.
no point have we heard anything we do had a quick temper.
But I used to get pretty hot occasionally. I told you the story about Pete Cusimano peeing on the fuel pump.
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
I bet.
No. Hey, this is racers.
Anyway, he had an old, I'm quite sure 38 or 39 Cadillac that he used to tow with. And they had that big old Buick Roadster that Carl used to run Pythagoras. Yeah. And Bud run a little coupe, chopped and channeled coupe, Ford coupe at the time. And we were towing to Meadville. And like I say, we towed with a chain. And it was a hot summer day. And that old Cadillac would vapor lock every 15 minutes. And anyway, I'm sure we're over the hoop-de-doos. They're probably on 277 going to Meadville that way. And we get on top of the hill and the damn thing would vapor lock, so you get out and pour some water. Well, we run out of water about halfway. So I gets pees on the fuel pump and made it all the way to Meadville.
Love it. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Some things money can't buy stuff like that. Holy Christ, what a mean-looking son of a bitch that guy is. Gil Lathrop.
Yeah.
Kane.
Yeah. He had that great big old 55 Packard.
Yeah.
And he had a beard. I thought, well, holy smokes, I don't want to get next to that guy. You know? And there's a lot of guys, not like Joe Saunders.
Yeah.
Joe Saunders, if there was that much room between two cars, he'd try to get in there. And he lost his sponsor and they owned a junkyard. Really, that's true. Ask your dad, Randy.
I know.
I won that first Dean Layfield Memorial I won.
Right.
And I don't know what always made me mad, stuck in my craw about that. I never got a trophy for. I got the trophy, but I had to give it back.
Well, you didn't get to keep it.
And, the only one I get to keep it was Plero. He said, I'm not giving it back. He still got it. He said, the hell with it. This is what, he was a hell of a showman. And he'd get junk to go where he wanted it to. He was a hell of a race car driver.
Days like this, there'll be days like this, Mama said. Mama said, Mama said, there'll be days like this, there'll be days like this, my Mama said. I went walking the other day and everything.
Of the game, you mentioned tire stagger.
He knew how to slow down and get through the corners and without destroying the car.
Mm-hmm.
And there again, like I say, Dean's up here throwing dirt over the fence and Squirt's down here going by him.
Yeah.
Squirt was he was quite many years ahead of us when it comes to driving them race cars. Teasing him about get them kids out of that car and put a man in there and win some races. And, I never had any disagreements with any of them. Leonard would, if you ever need anything, Leonard would be the first one there. And the same way with Jerry and old Lloyd and Marv, all of us were, as far as I was in, we were very close. And Lloyd Williams left a Cadillac down to my garage one time on Clinton Street, Monroe Street. I had a little body shop on Monroe Street. Left it across the street, left the keys in it. Come to get it in the morning, it was gone. Somebody stole his Cadillac. What the hell did you leave the keys in it for?
Yeah.
Anyway, we all laughed over that for a year. One time I was arguing with somebody, and Dick, what the hell's his name? Gilbert.
Oh, yeah.
Said something to me, and I don't get me wrong, I'm not mad, I love the guy. He done what he thought was right. I said something, hey, look, get the hell out of this, it's not your argument. Get out of here. He reached up and gave me a shot right in the side of the head. Now it's my argument, he said. That takes a lot of nerve. Now it's my argument. Emery was, what a very emotional man.
Oh?
Yeah, he worried about everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time at Erie, I got a picture of it somewhere. It was on the front cover. My front bumper's right up touching his steering wheel. I'm on that little bronze Camaro I have.
Wow.
And he jumps out of the car and comes over and worried about me. And I thought, my God, but that's the kind of guy Emery is, or was.
Tom Dill.
I say he's nuts. No, Tommy wasn't that bad. I've waited for him up in the corners, waited for him to come, and took him down by the flagpole a few times. His wife.
He wouldn't do anything like that.
No,
would he?
no. Well, I remember one night over the area, I'm sitting up there. He took me out in a I had to get qualified. He took me out in a consolation race or something. My wife used to sit with Big Red as one of his wives. Oh. He's been married 15 times so far. But anyway, don't get mad now. But I sat there waiting for him to come around. And my little Norwegian told Red, she said, Tom and I are close, real close. And he finally pissed him off. He told me. And I did. I caught him. I got him. I got him. No, don't get carried away now, he said. The only way you got by Tom is when he'd get it broke loose, like you were talking about Dean. Get the ass end hanging out, then you shoot underneath him, shut the door so he couldn't come off the corner without hitting you. And the only way you got by him. And one night at Erie, I don't remember what happened. I was leading the race, he was leading the race back and forth. And finally, I shot it underneath him and I run about 2 laps. It was one of them nights where everybody's lead broke down or something. Well, anyway, I've got by him that probably the same that way. He come running over. No, we're no longer friends. And I ripped my, good. Now I won't feel bad when I wrap you right between the eyes. Now don't get carried. And we both laughed. Oh, God almighty. If there was any arguments, they only lasted a few minutes and it was gone the next day.